Hello, my name is Robert Burton,
And I'm Trevor Camenden.
and we're going to be giving a presentation over productivity and ethics. Productivity in general terms is the rate of output per unit of input. In construction, this could be many things. It could be the cubic yards of concrete that can be poured per hour, how many walls get framed per day, or doors installed per hour. I'm going to break it up and go more in depth than just on-site construction. I narrowed down areas of construction into 3 different areas. The first is pre-construction, which involves things such as estimating, site logistic plans, bid submittals, and contracts, just to name a few. Project management, which is heavy on the superintendents and project managers as they are the ones managing the site on a daily basis. And resource management, which involves managing manpower, equipment, time, and money. Pre-construction productivity can be smooth and streamlined, or it can be rough and hectic. The difference between the two is how well the pre-construction team is prepared. In an article by Construction Business Owner, they list 4 steps in order to master the pre-construction process. The first step is to ask the tough questions. Questions such as, do we have a standard for pre-construction being used by every PM, estimator, etc.? Or is the process too focused on checking boxes and less about constructive dialogue about potential project challenges? By creating a standard, the pre-con team will know what they need to get done every time they start a new project. When potential project challenges have been discussed before they come up on site, the problem will be able to be solved and overcome quicker, positively impacting project productivity during the actual construction. The second step is to plan practically. The project talks about firms' inabilities to transfer their plan onto the job site. It's suggested to use lean construction, which is using the concept of pole planning. This is when all the stakeholders plan collaboratively from the desired end result backwards. It also involves a plan of when to appropriately use resources at the correct time. The time to start doing this is during pre-construction, which will help productivity down the road. Step 3 is to hit the reset button. This needs to happen when there are personnel changes. New personnel can call for a new plan. The 4th step is to challenge assumptions. This can be done with the use of what's called red teaming, developed by Bryce Hoffman. It involves an internal team whose purpose is to challenge the project strategy. By doing this, it gives a plan for when the expected turns into the unexpected. Over time, project management involves more and more technology, from file cabinets and faxes to online programs and emails. What this has been able to do is make communication between different entities faster and allows for things to get done quicker. For example, the company I work for uses Procore. Some of the project management tools it offers are quality and safety, project management dashboard, time card, schedule, and inspections. For quality and safety, you can see failed inspection items by project. This allows the user to see what areas aren't being hit hard enough when it comes to productivity. What I mean by this is if a project is consistently failing at certain inspections, like safety, you know to put a little more effort into it on the first attempt so workers don't have to come back and work on it a second time. One thing that can be done with a certain job is to use the inspections tool for self-inspections. This allows for automatic data tracking from the inspections and see how they change over time. It's tools like this that help improve project management. Technology helps keep track of more information, makes it more readily available, and decreases the time it takes to communicate and coordinate job sites. Nothing drives productivity of the job site, in my opinion, more than good communication, and technology allows for better communication. If all entities of a job aren't communicating, there will inevitably be conflict. Conflict can be harmful to the productivity of the overall site and delay the project. Another area of construction productivity that is important is resource management. 4 large examples of resources in construction are people or manpower, equipment, time, and money. There are multiple ways to manage manpower. What's important about it is maximizing the force you have to create the highest productivity. All sorts of factors come into play here. To start, let's say a superintendent has 3 laborers working on a site, and there's 2 jobs that need to get done before the end of the day. 2 of the laborers get along well, and the other laborer is a stubborn old guy who only likes to do things his way. One of the jobs requires 2 people, and the other only requires 1. It would only make sense to put the 2 laborers that get along well together, and the 3rd laborer who is stubborn in the way he does things on his own. By doing this, the superintendent knows there won't be friction while the jobs are completed because he placed his workers in a situation where they can be the most productive. This is a very simple example, but it shows that playing employees' strengths and weaknesses to the job's advantage improves productivity. Equipment can be looked at in a similar way. If a company has 2 jobs going and one project needs to put AC units on the roof and the other site needs to move doors from the ground level up to the 2nd level, it makes sense to send the forklift to the site that needs it for the AC units. Doors can be carried upstairs, and a damaged door wall is better than letting AC units sit in the dirt when HVAC workers are ready to install them. Time plays into both of these. Everything that's done in life involves time, and maximizing productivity with the time of manpower hours a week or equipment only helps keep a job on schedule. Managing the time of a project can be the difference between keeping the project on schedule and falling behind and potentially losing revenue. Lastly, there's financial management. People such as myself often think of financial management and think of endless spreadsheets. Yes, it can be that, but it's more than that. Financial management is the use of economic resources poorly handled, and that could be the end of the company. It's important to allocate enough money where it's needed. Spending money on new equipment all the time when a budget is tight could be an example of poor financial management. This is a scenario where it needs to be considered if new equipment is going to improve the productivity on site or if it's just to add the newest model. Once a project is started, a PM might realize that when the project was estimated, more money was allocated towards doors than what was needed, but not enough money towards the cabinets. By realizing this, the PM can use money from what was put towards the doors towards the cabinets instead, saving time spent on a problem that actually isn't there. Proper financial management keeps things moving and allows for smoother construction jobs. Now I'm going to turn it over to Trevor.
So now we should focus to another topic, which is ethics. Unlike productivity, ethics isn't something that can be measured, but it is a noticeable trait of a company that can always be improved. Ethics is defined as moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. Ethics can be described as a moral code of an individual or as a group and affect how they make decisions. 2 key words that will come up often when talking about ethics are integrity and honesty. In business, honesty is about being truthful with your business partners and upholding your end of the contract. Integrity can be described as doing the right thing when no one is looking, meaning your company isn't cutting corners or trying to save a few bucks by not doing the right thing. Ethics is especially prevalent in construction, which I'm sure we've all learned through taking 420, and we learned about ethics in other construction classes as well. Ethics are important at all levels of a company and at all stages of the construction process. When making decisions, a contractor must keep in mind the welfare of all parties directly and indirectly involved with the project, including the owner, architect, engineers, subcontractors, laborers, and the public, among others. General contractors face ethical dilemmas throughout the entire construction process, starting from the bidding stage, going through building and construction, all the way to closeout and inspections. So if you work for a construction company, or really any business for that matter, I'm sure you're familiar with, or at least heard about their code of ethics, or otherwise known as code of conduct. A code of ethics is a guide of principles designed to help professionals conduct business honestly and with integrity. Every company has a code of ethics, which can usually be found on their website or hung in their place of business or job trailers, for example. The idea is to have it readily accessible to all employees to ensure they are following these guidelines. I chose to share the CMAA's code of ethics because I thought they did a good job of keeping it simple while covering the many aspects of construction. For context, the CMAA is the Construction Management Association of America, and they provide standards and general guidelines for the construction industry. So these 4 bullet points are the 4 sections of their code of conduct and where they go more in detail about each section. And I'll just give a brief explanation of each. So first, the obligation to the public. When working on construction projects, it is important to keep the needs and safety of the public in mind, as they will be exposed to the construction site and may even be the end users of the project depending on what you're working on. This can refer to only accepting projects in your company with which you are qualified for and capable of taking on. You shouldn't lie about your qualifications or your current workload just to win the job, because this probably won't result in a quality product. This can also include no discrimination or violating any laws that relate to your performance. They also mentioned fair competition by being honest about past experiences and maintaining a good reputation in the industry. They also describe not giving gifts or bribes to a public official when involved with public projects. And finally, they end the obligation to the public with safety. Safety is not just important for those who are on site, but also for the public in the surrounding area. Next is obligation to the client. The client is the one who awarded you the job and has a contract signed with you. So first and foremost, it is important to serve the client honestly and with competence. Every decision that is made should be done in the best interest of the client, because it is their money after all. They also must have fair compensation and negotiate fairly and openly with clients. This also includes fair pricing and avoid upcharging. Finally, the contractor must keep all information and records related to the client and their project private unless otherwise authorized. Next is obligation to the profession. This section is more about integrity and playing by the rules of the industry. It includes respecting and following industry standards. This means making sure your work is quality and in accordance with OSHA and any other local or federal standards related to the CM profession. Again, they mention honesty regarding their company's qualifications, experience, and past performances. This also includes honesty throughout the entire duration of the project regarding payments, progress, and other quality of work related to the job. It's also not to put individual interest above the quality of work and contribution to the industry. Lastly is obligation to the environment. This refers to sustainability and waste management. The end goal is to reduce emissions and waste and do what they can to preserve the environment for future generations. So now that I've gone over a few examples of how a construction company tries to be ethical, I want to talk about the unethical side of construction. So I wanted to start with a stat that I found to be pretty amazing. According to a survey done by Transparency International, the construction industry is one of the most fraudulent industries in the world. 48% of construction professionals feel that corruption is commonplace, and 41% had been offered bribes at least once in their construction career. So I want to go over a couple situations involving bad ethics and a few specific examples. Number one is bid shopping. Bid shopping is the practice where contractors supply bid amounts from subcontractors to other subs. They do this in order to help out maybe certain subs that they want to win the job in order to guarantee that they have a low bidder. And bid shopping can also decrease bids way too low to the point where they either equal the cost of the job or below cost, resulting in job site issues for that subcontractor. This obviously gives an unfair advantage to certain subs and shows a lack of integrity on the part of the contractor. Another one is poor working conditions. Poor working conditions is a major issue in construction, especially internationally. If workers are forced to work in poor conditions, it can lead to low productivity and morale. It's the obligation of the contractor to provide an appropriate environment to work and to treat their workers fairly and respect their rights as humans. An example of this happened during the construction of multiple stadiums in Qatar for the 2022 World Cup. This project consisted of hundreds of thousands of migrant workers in Qatar who were at risk and exploited. Workers on the job reported unpaid wages, illegal deductions from their paychecks, crowded and unsanitary labor quarters, and unsafe working conditions. The migrant workers were taken advantage of and were essentially forced to work due to faulty migrant labor laws. Obviously, this is a pretty extreme example of poor working conditions, but it just goes to show how companies can take advantages of their workers. And then to bounce off that, another example of unethical issues in construction are lack of importance put on safety. Some companies put focus on safety more than others, while other companies' main focus may just be making money. This can be a company issue or more of an individual issue, more directly related to the superintendent, PM, or engineer on site. Some people don't take safety seriously and may choose the easier way or the way they've always done it. But choices have consequences, and we must keep in mind that the safety of everyone is most important, even if it's inconvenient or requires more precautions than it feels necessary at the time. Safety should be taught and enforced throughout a construction company to every individual on site. Safety procedures are put in place for a reason, and it would be unethical to disregard them. Another example would be poor quality. I mentioned it earlier, but with the code of ethics, the contractor has an obligation to the client to be competent and perform to the best of their ability. They shouldn't cut corners and value saving money or finishing on schedule over the quality of the project. It's their duty to put self-interest aside and do the best to satisfy their client. Another example is bribery. There was an instance in New York City where 14 people, including 2 city inspectors and an asbestos inspector, were caught receiving monetary bribes and gifts from owners and contractors in exchange for giving them the stamp of approval without even performing an inspection. And then finally, improper billing. An example of this was Hunter Roberts Construction was fined $7 million for defrauding subcontractors by billing them for work that was not performed or by billing them at higher rates than were stated in the contract. So just like how you can improve and maintain high standards of productivity, you can do the same for ethics. So how can we prevent those examples of bad ethics from happening? Here's some best practices that a company can implement to avoid poor ethics. So number one is just start with a clear policy. Every company should have a policy or code of ethics, like I mentioned earlier. It should be clear and unambiguous. Sometimes it may not be obvious what is right and what is wrong to a person. So having it written out clearly can save the confusion and promote better decision-making throughout the company. It should also be easily accessible to anyone in the company. However, you can't just have a policy and assume the entire company will follow it. It needs to be implemented in training and taught to everyone individually. Communication is key. If the company emphasizes its importance, the employee will recognize how serious it needs to be taken. Secondly, it starts at the top. Ethics applies to everyone in the company, regardless of position or department. It starts with the CEO and goes all the way down to the interns. If upper management leads by example, the rest will follow, and vice versa. Third, review, monitor, and report. There's a common phrase, see something, say something. People need to be held accountable by their peers. Companies should implement avenues for employees to anonymously report misconduct. That way, no one would be discouraged from speaking up when they see something wrong. And lastly, hire the right people and get rid of the bad people. It starts from the type of people you hire. Honesty and integrity should be qualities you look for in job candidates. They need to be able to understand their own values and if they're in accordance with your own company's. Some people can be taught ethics, and that should always be emphasized to those who need it. But sometimes you just need to get rid of the unethical people. If it's clear that an employee's values don't match up with your company's, there's no reason to keep that risk around. So in the short run, when someone makes an unethical decision, they do it to save money, try to beat schedule, or something else for self-gain. However, when caught, the penalties can be detrimental. Lawsuits can result from being dishonest with the owner, architect, or subcontractors. Lack of safety implementation and work conditions could also lead to some expensive lawsuits as well. Most of the time, unethical decisions are illegal also, so this can lead to some very expensive fines and even jail time. Finally, if word gets around that your company is involved with bid shopping or other unethical activities, your reputation could be badly hurt. This could lead to the loss of available work and lack of manpower. No one wants to be in contract with an unethical company because they may fear that they may be taken advantage of and at risk. Also, no one would want to work with an unethical company, so finding or retaining employees may be difficult. The moral of the story is don't be unethical because the potential repercussions can be very bad.
Today, we explain the importance of improving productivity and ethics within a company and ways to do so. Productivity can be increased or decreased depending on how the company is managed, specifically the areas of pre-construction, project management, and resource management. The construction industry is a very competitive business, and some companies will do whatever it takes to win. However, contractors that operate with honesty and integrity and hold high values will ultimately come out on top. Thank you for watching our presentation.